In some cases, an entity owns property that is leased to and occupied by its parent or another subsidiary. The property does not qualify as investment property in the consolidated financial statements because the property is owner occupied from the perspective of the group. Because it's understandable for our level class to get confused with this one, especially that we have not yet talked about consolidated financial statements uh, comprehensively, and we have not yet discussed PFRS 3 and PFRS 10. Okay, but let me try to give you a simple idea here, class. We have two companies, class, company A and company B. Okay, company A is the owner of the building, class. Okay, and the building is being used to earn rentals. And company B is actually the one who leased the property, class. So company A leased the property to company B. So company B is the one occupying the property. In the separate financial statements of company A, class, of course, the building will appear there. Okay? And since it is being held for rental, class, the building will appear as an investment property. Why will the building appear as an investment property in the books or the financial statements of company A, class? Because company A is the owner of the property and the building is used to earn rentals. On the part of company B, class, the building, even though it is the one using the property, class, will not appear in its financial statements. Why? Because company B is not the owner of the building. He is only leasing it. He is only the lessor. Okay, so lessors normally will not need to recognize the leased asset uh, in their separate books. Okay, so no issue. Company B is not the owner of the building; he's only a lessee, so it will not be reported in his books. Company A will report the property in his books because he is the owner of the property. The and no issue as to why it is classified as an investment property by company A because it is being held for rental. The issue now, class, is what will happen if company A is the parent of company B. What will happen if there is a parent subsidiary relationship between company A and company B? Okay, so as to their separate financial statements, class, no effect. Okay, where then will there be a consequence? Only in the preparation of your consolidated financial statements. Okay, so in the consolidated financial statements, class, you would see it from the perspective of the entity as a whole, not just from the perspective of company A. Even though company A is the parent, your consolidated financial statements would be prepared from the perspective of the consolidated entity. So, in the eyes of the consolidated entity, class, everything that is being owned by company A and company B is owned by the consolidated entity. Again, everything that is owned by company A would be owned also by the consolidated entity. Everything that is owned by company B would also be owned by the consolidated entity. All assets that belong to company A belong to the consolidated entity. All assets that belong to company B belong to the consolidated entity also, in the eyes of the consolidated entity. Okay, so you just change the transaction, class, and replace company A and company B with the consolidated entity. So what is our transaction here? Company A leased the building to company B. And now company B is the one using or occupying the property. Okay? Company A leased the property to company B and company B is now occupying the property. Now replace company A and company B with the consolidated entity, class. So meaning, instead of company A, we would say consolidated entity leased the property to, instead of company B, we would say consolidated entity. And it is now the consolidated entity that occupies the property. So, to reiterate the entire sentence now, the consolidated entity leases the property to the consolidated entity, and it is the consolidated entity that occupies the property now. So, who owns the property? Consolidated entity. Who occupies the property? Consolidated entity. In that case, the property is considered now as owner-occupied. Because who owns it? Consolidated entity. Who occupies it? The consolidated entity. Even though in reality it's company A and company B. But in the eyes of the consolidated entity, he is both the owner and the occupant. So in the separate books of company A class, it's an investment property, but in the consolidated financial statements, it will not be an investment property. Okay? That would be a source of a very tricky question, class. Many students would get that wrong. I hope you get it. In the books of company A, since it is being held for rental, it would be reported as an investment property. In the consolidated financial statements, it would be classified as an owner-occupied property because in the eyes of the consolidated entity, it is both the owner and the occupant of the property. Okay? You should not be asked as to the books of company B class because the property will not appear in the books of the lessee. If you will be asked as to the books of company B, if you'll be asked from the perspective of company B, the question is just trying to trick you, class.